does those unresolved past issues affect our marriage as we're going down the road as Christians?
I'll answer that question, but I want to go back to a part that I didn't answer, which is very important. Of when I went to your house that last night, you showed me the plans for Crossroads Freedom Center before it was even, and I was pretty amazed at the scope of it, you know, and really blessed by your heart. You felt that God had given you this vision, and you had it all laid out there, and you were waiting for God's go-ahead. And as I, you know, that was, how many years ago was that, brother?
Probably 10 years
About 10 years ago. And so as I look now what God has done, I get a kick out of it because I saw it before, you know, in its conceptual stage and in its dream stage, and now it's coming to pass. And I just so am thrilled at what God is doing and what He's going to do, knowing the heart behind it and how God has spoken to you back then.
Yeah, it is a thrill to realize why God takes you down so many roads. Even before you're a Christian, right. He's helping you build your journey, or you know what you need to fulfill your mission, I call it. And you know, the most amazing part is every piece of my life fits in a place to help me grow to get to where I'm at. Right. And there's no coincidence, or I mean, it's been a God thing, and it's just, you know, sharing that with God and walking with Him. And you know, and I know, it doesn't mean that it's an easy life, no. You know, and He never said it was, but it's a life walking next to Him and with Him, that it's just a growth, it's just a way to grow. It's like being on that potter's wheel, you know, and that's where we become more of use to Him and really being able to serve the way that I believe He's called us all to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's no such thing as an easy life. Even people who have plenty of what the world says you should have. Just look at Hollywood and see how miserable they are. They can't even stay married to each other for 3 months. They're supposed to be the best looking people, right? They're the ones also addicted to things, and there's a specific reason for that. And going back to your question about people who get married and they haven't been released from their addiction, big problem, you know, because when two people who are not complete, they usually get married thinking that they each are going to complete each other. You know, we call each other my better half. There is no better half. There's no miracle in a half a person marrying a half a person and making a whole. The miracle is in a whole person and another whole person coming together and being one. Now, the problem is that we're not whole when we get married. You know, we get married and we're not complete in Christ. In other words, we haven't given Him control. And so when you don't give God control, or when He's not first in your life, then you have these other things that will fill that vacuum. Those are called addictions. It's your soul is looking for something, is longing for something that, by the way, only God can give you. So you either look to sex, pornography, drugs, alcohol, the whole list of stuff. Everybody has their own set of weaknesses, and Satan knows which ones are yours and mine, so he goes after those. But the problem is that there's a vacuum there. Because the soul, we were created to enjoy God's presence. We were created for a need to be with God. That's why He made us, to be a being that He can share His love with, and that we would willingly share our love with Him. When we don't do that, or when we move away from how we were created, it creates a void. And then you see it all over the world. People are in search of how to fill that void. And you know, it can even be money. Well, maybe if I get rich, that will satisfy. And how many millionaires and billionaires are out there that have achieved that, and they found out that wasn't it? How disappointing is that? There's nothing that can satisfy. I heard this actor, I'll never forget it. It was an interview. In fact, you can look it up on the internet. It's an interview that Parade Magazine did with an actor named Shia LaBeouf. He's from the Transformer movies and other movies. But when I read the interview at that time, he was the actor in his age group that had made the most money for Hollywood. Just billions of dollars he had made. A very successful, kind of rags to riches guy. You know, grew up not a lot of money. And they were interviewing him because he loves fast cars. He loves cars, and he's an alcoholic. And he had 2 wrecks, almost killed himself. So here's this reporter interviewing him, and the reporter's saying, "Hey, Shia, what's up with you? You have all the success. You have, you know, beautiful women that will want to be with you. You bought a beautiful house for your mother. You know, you have houses and lands. Yet, why are you so destructive?" And he said something so interesting that I'll never forget it. He said, "Well, you know, most people don't know this, but actors and actresses, they usually don't feel worthy with all the stuff they have." And he says, "I don't know. It's like I have a God-sized hole in my soul, and if I knew how to fill it, I would." And then the interview ended, you know. So he said that he had a God-sized hole in his soul, and if he knew how to fill it, he would. Well, how do you fill a God-sized hole? What fits in a God-sized hole? Only God. You try to fill it with anything else, it's going to fall way short. It's not going to do the trick. So obviously, the world is made up of people longing, searching for something that they can only get from God. When you get from God, when you fill that void with Him, then He begins those addictions. You're free. Jesus set you free from all that stuff. But you have to make Him Lord and Savior of your life. Not only Savior, but Lord. That means He's in control. And when that happens, then those chains of addiction, those chains of all that stuff that was messing you up, fall off. And you walk forward with the Lord, stay in close communion with Him, because the flesh never goes away. But if God is in control, then your flesh, you know, has to take, you know, it has to disappear for a while until you give it space again. And hopefully you won't.
I'm going to jump back to one thing you said that I'm experiencing, and that is in my marriage, having both of us whole is an experience beyond my understanding, and such a blessing to have a marriage, and that's Maria, my wife now. Even though I've been through a marriage, and we both been through really rough times in our past, and God did make us whole, and we really worked hard to get whole. Through really turning all those things over to God before we got married. And I couldn't imagine, I never had a role model and understood what real marriage, except you and Missy, and a few people, but not very many people I know, even if they're Christian, are fully open and honest about their life and what's going on in their past. So it's hard to have a role model if not everybody's honest and open to share what the truth is about them, you know, and not just a model of not making mistakes and everything's good. You know, we don't get the personal relationship that I did with you, and I have a few other friends that have marriages, but you know, being whole and having a marriage is the most unbelievable blessed thing. You know, that's why I know why God made man and woman and gave us a wife, because it can be so beautiful.
Absolutely.
But it has to be whole. And if you fool yourself, you can't hide from what you're not dealing with before you get married, because it always comes out. You know, because we're hurting one way or the other, and we want to be whole. But to do that before you get married would be the key. Going through that kind of starts building walls and hurts and things. Then you got to have a longer path to get those things healed again.
Absolutely.
But if there is a way, and you know, I couldn't say, you know, it's been 5 years going on 6, and I could have never imagined life could be so good living with another person, a lady that I'm blessed tremendously. So I just wanted to say that there is that it does exist.
Absolutely, and that was God's plan. That's the beauty of marriage. The problem is that we don't understand what marriage is. You know, most people get married to be happy. That's not why you should get married. You should be, if you're a Christian, you should be happy in Christ. So you have the joy of the Lord before you get married. Now, you put that on somebody, because nobody really can make you happy. You know, you can be happy for a little time, you know, or you can. Happiness is dependent on what happens.
Right.
If what happens is good, then you're happy. If what happens is not good, then you're unhappy. Now, the joy of the Lord that he gives transcends everything. You can have the joy of the Lord even in some very, very difficult circumstances. So people get married, want to be happy. They're ecstatic at the wedding, you know, the honeymoon. Then they get home, real life hits. They see that each one has, you know, inconveniences, stuff that's not so nice, right? And now you start feeling unhappy and you're blaming the other person. Oh, you know, I didn't know you did this, or how come you do that? And how come you're not making me happy? You're not doing this for me. And then the fight starts. And, you know, marriage, the way God designed it to be, is totally antithetical to that. It's totally the opposite of that. God meant for us to find, because marriage was designed by God for our well-being. In other words, Missy to me is my check and balance. You know, she keeps me on point, and I know where I am as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, by my attitude towards her. Not dependent on how good she's doing that day or what her mood is that day, but how am I responding to her needs? Because marriage is an opportunity to get love from God, because love comes from God. 1 John chapter 4 says that. Love comes from God. As a matter of fact, God is love. So to try to love somebody without first going to God, you're in big trouble already. I don't know what you're trafficking in, but it's not love. It's something else that we call love. But you get love from him, and it's an opportunity to express that love to somebody else without expecting anything in return. Jesus was so clear about that. He says, if you love somebody who loves you, what have you done? Even sinners do that. But I say to you, then he launched into that whole thing on the Sermon on the Mount, love those who are unlovely, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, bless those who curse you. And then that's for our enemies. What about our spouse? Right? So when you are whole and are getting love from God, love just comes out. And instead of looking, what is that person doing for me, your whole mindset changes. Says, what can I do for that person? And imagine if you have two people operating like that.
You took the words out of my mouth.
It's like you
try to outserve each other.
Outserve each other.
That is the beautiful waltz, dance of love that God has.
With bumps in the road because we're human, right?
But
it's you know, those are the times when you know, if I get up, for example, sometimes I get up and I'm feeling a little irritated for no reason. You ever happen to you? I mean, it's, you know, we're down here, we have this flesh on, and it happens. Well, instead of going through my day like I used to that way, and maybe taking it out on my wife, I go to God. I say, God, I'm feeling irritated. I don't even know why. Lord, would you help me? Would you fill me with your Holy Spirit so that I will have the joy of the Lord and not take this out on my kids, on my wife, right? And guess what? The joy of the Lord does come, and I'm not, you know, I'm not grumpy with them. You know, and God keeps me in check. You know, even sometimes, you know, when you get home and you're tired or you're hungry, you know, red alert, right? That's when your flesh can come out. And sometimes, you know, I've gotten home and Missy says something and I feel a little kind of, you know, that thing you feel in your flesh, and I'll say something with a slight edge on it, right? Maybe she didn't even pick it up, but I'll go to the room. God speaks to me. Okay, what did you do, right? Well, you better go back there and make it right. I go back, babe, I'm sorry, the way I said it. He goes, oh, I didn't even know you said it that way, but I know I said it that way. In other words, the Holy Spirit keeps you in check, and it's a wonderful way to live because Christ is being conformed in your heart. There's nothing more alive than to have Christ being formed in your heart and being able to bless somebody else without thinking about yourself all the time.
Praise the Lord. I got one more question that I wanted to just go through, and that was the, you know, a couple months ago or a month ago, you did a talk about the flesh, and I think all of us in our struggles and our understanding of our battles, our spiritual battle, really, it's really helpful to understand our flesh and kind of take it apart like you did and kind of give us an outline, especially for people in recovery that are battling a lot of different things. If they don't have a clear understanding about our flesh and the spirit, and that seems to be such a war that they go through without ammunition.
Right.
And if you're not aware, I always say, how can you defeat your enemy if you can't see him? And so we have to take our understanding beyond just the physical and really kind of realize we are in a spiritual war, and our flesh is not working with us a lot. And I'm just going to kind of open the door for you to talk about that a little bit.
I love to talk about that because this is really where the rubber hits the road. This is our daily walk every day, not in church, not in a prayer meeting, but Monday through Saturday when you're home.
Amen.
You know, this is where that battle is, and there's a definite way to win it because God has made a way and paved the way for it. What it is, you know, the Apostle Paul gives us, I'll break it down, but he says this about himself, and I want to say it, and I do say it about myself. I am crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. What he's meaning there is that his flesh is crucified. He has crucified it on the cross. In other words, he wants nothing to do with it, but he wants Christ to live in him. So we have this sinful nature. We call it the flesh. Everyone has it. Everyone's born into it because that's what happened when Adam sinned. Sin came into the world. We're born into that, into a sinful nature. Now Christ came to set us free.